Welcome, tennis fans, to the 20th episode of Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, Ivy Jane, and in today's episode, I will be talking about the United Cup, the Brisbane International, and so many other more tournaments leading up to the Australian Open. But before I actually start, I just want to say this is my 20th episode. I can't believe I've been recording this for 20 weeks now. Definitely throughout this process, I learned a lot more about tennis, and maybe before I wasn't really comfortable talking about it. Like, I didn't know that people will want to learn or like have as strong of a passion as tennis as I did. Like, I didn't know if they will be interested in hearing me talk about it, but now I feel like through this podcast, I'm more comfortable talking about it, and I felt like it helped me communicate well, just like in general, because I can talk basically to a microphone for so long, and I felt like it kind of made me better at communicating what I feel. So I'm really grateful for that. So thank you, everyone. And before we begin, please follow all of my social medias. That is Instagram and Twitter using @TennisTraverse. That is @TennisTraverse. If you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And let's get right into today's episode. Okay, so there's a lot of tournaments going on, so just buckle up because we have so much stuff to cover. And I just want to say that tennis is finally back. We actually have some things that we can talk about that are new, so let's just get right into it. The first tournament I will talk about is the United Cup. If you guys didn't listen to my last episode, I'll kind of sum up what the United Cup is. It is basically different countries competing to see who will win. So yeah, that's just it. But there's like many top players playing in the United Cup. For example, Novak Djokovic, Iga Swiatek. There's just like a lot of good players playing in it, and I just want to say a country has caught basically everyone off guard, and that is Team Norway, which is composed of mainly Casper Ruud as its star player. And I just want to say Casper Ruud did really, really well. He's on a 3-match winning streak right now for singles. He did really well. He played against Borna Coric and he beat him, and he's just in top condition now. I really like how he plays tennis. I feel like he changed a lot through his off season. He definitely put in a lot of work, and he kind of plays in a more aggressive way now. Like, instead of defending the ball, he is willing to take risks, and I feel like that's what's lacking in his previous season. So I'm really proud of him for that. And another female player on Team Norway is Helgo, and she's been doing really well, and I feel like soon she can compete against like the world top 200 players, which is super impressive, and I'm really happy for her. So Team Norway basically surprised everyone, and even though they lost, I believe in the quarterfinals, they still did really well. Okay, so moving on from Team Norway, we'll talk about Novak Djokovic. So obviously, Novak is Novak. He's been doing consistently well. However, he did lose his singles match against Australia, which is the quarterfinals. And I believe it was really sad. But Novak has been battling with an injury, and that made people, and like a lot of people was like, okay, like Novak will suffer from it for the Australian Open. He'll perform less well. To an extent, I agree, because obviously when he played against Alex de Minaur from Australia, he lost in 2 straight sets, and he did look like he was in pain. So that's one reason why I agree with that. And obviously, any injury will devastate or like decrease the chance of a player doing well in the upcoming tournament, since the 2 tournaments are so close together. However, I do feel like Novak just have an incredibly fast ability of just working away from his injury. Like, he has a way to sort of avoid his injury. Like, he might be like in rough form in the first 2 rounds, but because he's the number 1 seed, he'll play against players that are, for example, ranked in the top 5, like really, really behind him. So he has more chance to adapt to his injury, and by the time where he's actually playing against really good players, such as, I don't know, players in the top 10. He's super comfortable with his injury. He's obviously going to be more um, recovered from his injury and he's going to do better. So I feel like to some extent I agree that his injury will hinder his performance, but to some extent I don't. So that's just what I think about it. Okay, moving on. I said that Alex de Minaur is really in top shape because not everyone can beat Novak, even if Novak's injured. It's actually super hard to beat Novak no matter what because he can, like, just always, for example, if you have 3 match points, he literally doesn't care. He's like the one player that's like really clutch. Like, he can save match points and just turn the whole thing totally around. You may just win the second set and Novak's like, right. And then for this final set, he'll literally bagel you. Like, his mindset is just so top form. So Alex de Minaur must be in really top condition to win against Novak as well. And because Australian Open is coming up and he's from Australia, I'm really looking forward to see how he's gonna do. And Sakari and Kerber, so Sakari from Greece and Kerber from Germany, they're also doing really well. Kerber, I believe, just gave birth and she's in top condition as well. And the final will be between Germany and Poland. So Germany is represented by Alexander Zverev and Angelina Kerber, and Poland is represented by Iga Świątek and Hubert Hurkacz, which will be an amazing matchup. From what I'm predicting, probably the singles for the men's will be Hubert Hurkacz versus Zverev, and female will be Iga Świątek versus Kerber. So it's going to be amazing matchups. And I feel like they're gonna split it. I feel like Zverev's gonna win for Germany, and then Iga Świątek is gonna win for Poland, and it kind of is going to be decided through the mixed doubles, and that I have no idea on. I feel like any one of them can win because, like, an example of this could be how Maria Sakkari and Stefano Tsitsipas, they were playing mixed doubles, and both of those two are amazing singles players, but when they're playing mixed doubles, they sort of like singles, if you're a really good singles player, it doesn't immediately mean that you're like an amazing doubles player. So I really don't know how it's gonna turn out. So I think I have no idea and I don't know how to predict for this one. So yeah, okay. Let's just move on because it's already hitting the 8 minutes mark and I still have so much more to cover. Okay, now let's talk about the ASB Classic, which is another tournament. And I mentioned this tournament because Emma Raducanu is coming back. This is her first tournament back after, I believe, 8 months because of all the injuries she's been battling with. But this tournament kind of, it's like 2 stages. So the women happens first, and then after the whole thing is done, the men happen later. So we'll just talk about the women's tournament first. So mainly we'll talk about Emma Raducanu. So she played 2 rounds and she lost in the second round against Elena Svitolina, which is sort of, in my opinion, expected because Svitolina, I believe, was WTA's comeback player of the year last year, and even though she was down in the final set, I feel like Raducanu just kind of ran out of fuel, and that makes sense because she literally hasn't been back for such a long time, and she needs more training and more grinding because even though you train a lot during the off season, right, it's really different if you're on the court playing like in an actually competitive match. So I feel like this is something that every player who's coming back will need to work on, but I feel like she did really good and we can definitely see her coming back potentially. And that's that. However, I do want to mention Amanda Anisimova, who is an incredible player. I believe she played against Naomi in one of the Australian Opens, Naomi Osaka, and she beat Naomi in the third round. So she's obviously an amazing player. She beat Naomi too in Australian Open and French Open. I believe it was 2021, like 2 tournaments in a row. So she's amazing. However, she did get bagelled and breadsticked, which is kind of sad this tournament, but I kind of like her style of playing. She's a really good returner, so I'm really happy to see her come back, and I kind of want to see how she'll do in Australian Open, although I don't have really high expectations because of how she did, but I just want to mention that. Okay, so let's move on There are other two players who I also think are really good in ASB Classic. One is Emma Navarro. So obviously she had an amazing end of the season last year, and I'm really happy to see her back again. And during the semifinals, she played against Coco Gauff, which is the other really good player. So Emma lost by a score of 4-6 and 1-6. Or is it flipped? I don't remember, but one of the set was kind of close. Like 4-6 isn't a bad score. So especially against a player who just literally won the US Open. So I'm really happy for Emma, and I'm happy to see what will happen during Australian Open. Okay, moving on to Coco Gauff. I feel like she's doing really well. Maybe it's the preseason nerves that could be getting to her a little bit, because during her first few early rounds, she was like, especially during the first few games of like the first early rounds, she was kind of, I feel like maybe it's the nerves, or maybe it's just because she hasn't played. She couldn't immediately get into the rhythm, but she literally, after like a few games, she's like, okay, and then she just bageled or breadstick them. So yeah, I don't want that to affect her Australian Open performance, but I feel like through playing these preparational tournaments, she's gonna grow out of that pretty soon. Okay, and the final. Oh, yeah, sorry, wait, I forgot to mention that I'm recording this on a Saturday, and a lot of tournaments finals will be taking place tomorrow, but I didn't have time to wait for tomorrow to record because I have so much schoolwork going on, so I'm just gonna predict the tournament winners, and hopefully you guys can tell me if I was correct or not. Okay, so the final will be between Coco Gauff and Elena Svitolina, and I said Coco Gauff will win in two just because Coco's going into the tournament really hot. She literally just won US Open last year, so like I feel like Coco's gonna win. But obviously we can't underestimate Svitolina because she was the comeback player of the year. So obviously, Coco Gauff, she also came back in the US Open final, so this is going to be an amazing matchup. I'm really happy to see what this matchup will bring us. Okay, everyone, let's now move on to the Hong Kong Open. So, Hong Kong Open only consists of ATP, so we'll just talk about the males. So, first, I want to say, well, there's not that much stuff to say, I guess, but the first matchup I think is really impressive, I'll leave the highlight link down below, is between Francis Tiafoe and Shang Juncheng, and this was an incredible matchup. I believe Tiafoe played really well, but Shang Juncheng just played better in a way, and he managed to beat Tiafoe in two straight sets, which is super impressive. And Tiafoe also said that Shang Juncheng played amazing, so he's like a rising player. I believe I watched him last year, I think, during the qualifying rounds of US Open during Fan Week, and he did really good. I really like his style. He's a really entertaining player for sure. So happy to see what he'll bring us in the Australian Open. The other amazing matchup is Andrei Rublev and Arthur Fils. This matchup was amazing. Nothing more to talk about. I just want to say Andrei Rublev, I feel like he's still his solid self, but I feel like he's really good when he plays against players that has a lower ranking on him. I feel like his mental game perhaps isn't as strong as the other top like 10 players. However, I do feel like Andrei's doing really well, and I have a good feeling this year for him. And even though he's like, when he plays against players that rank lower than him, he can win most of the times. When he plays against players that has a higher ranking than him, he obviously will crack under pressure, and I feel like this is something that he will need to work on, and I feel like he did, maybe, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, so final time. So final is between Andrei Rublev versus Emil Rusaburi. Sorry if I butchered the name, but I think Emil Rusaburi will give Andre a tough fight just because I feel like he never gives up, and I said Andre will win in three, and I might be wrong, but I think Andre will ultimately come out on top. And I did mention how his mental game wasn't strong. Well, like his mental game can be better. However, I feel like when he plays against players that are ranked lower than him, he can perhaps just have like a better mindset when playing against them. So that's why I said Andre Rublev will beat Emil Ruziver in 3. Okay, last tournament to cover is the Brisbane International, and this is a huge tournament. It's gonna be the longest because Rafa Nadal and Naomi Osaka came back, and they both played amazingly. So, I guess we'll talk about Rafa first, but let's just sum up the men's side for Brisbane International first. So there are some things that I did not expect. For example, Ben Shelton lost in round 1 against Roman Safiullin. However, I do want to admit that I think Roman Safiullin is an incredible opponent. He's really well, and I believe one of the tour players was like, if Safiullin didn't have his injuries, he will be in the top 10. And I kind of agree with that because I feel like he has intense power, and if you guys remember, last year he beat Carlos Alcaraz, so he definitely have the mental game in him. And I felt like Ben Shelton, maybe he just lacked in the mental aspect, but I just felt like he lacked something, and that's why he lost in round 1. But to be honest, I felt like he did really good, and his serve is still out there, which is like his biggest weapon. And the other one, not as surprising, but Sebastian Corda's round 1 loss. I feel like he always just has been, I feel like the year before last year, which is 2022, that's crazy, like, or in 2024 anyways, but like that year I felt like expectations were built up so much for Sebastian. They were like, oh my god, he can make it to the finals of the US Open or like the semifinals, and everyone was rooting for him. And I saw him practice too. I thought he was doing really well. However, I feel like because of all his injuries and all the pressures that's built up against him, every time during the start of the season, he underperforms. And this year, I think that happened as well because he also lost in round 1. And to be honest, it wasn't, like, for me, I think it was normal for him to lose because even though he played against Yannick Hanfmann, which is kind of in a, like, even though he's not seeded, I still like feel like he's an impressive player. And I'm just looking at the stats right now, and to be honest, even though the score is quite close, so I mean it's fine. I feel like Corda's happy with his performance. So yeah, I just hope he does better at Australian Open compared to last year. So let's just hope he do good. Okay, move on. Andy Murray and Grigor Dimitrov had an amazing match. Like what I said before, Andy Murray, every time he plays at this time of the year, he just plays like it's not like he always wins. Like he just plays the most entertaining matches. It's always him and like some other amazing players, such as last year was him and Kokonakis. Like it's just always him during this time of the year. I have no idea why, but that's just how it works. So I guess it was like honestly such an incredible match, and I'll leave the link down below for you guys to check it out. And Grigor is amazing. I'm so happy that he's coming back and playing amazing because last year he also did amazing during the Paris Master. As I said before, he lost to Novak Djokovic, but Novak is Novak, so it was a little triumph for him, I think. And this year he's also doing really good. And even in this at the start of the year, he's not dropping his level, which means he definitely put in a lot of work during the off season. So really proud of him. And surprisingly, there's a lot of walkovers, and I don't know why because I was like kind of concerned about this, considering how this is literally the start of the tennis season, and a lot of players are like withdrawing from matches because of their like injuries. Literally, it's the start of the season, y'all. And also, Madison Keys withdraw from Australian Open. I think it was because of a wrist injury or knee injury. I'm not so sure, but yeah, she withdrew from Australian Open. So there's been a lot of people backing out of tournaments, which I'm really sad about. But it is what it is. Okay, so now let's talk about Nadal, and then we'll predict the final results. So Nadal played amazing. He lost in the quarterfinals, and to be honest, I was surprised, but his opponent played amazing. So Rafa won the first set with the score of 7-5. I was watching it. I watched the start and I was like, okay, Rafa's gonna win because I just felt like Rafa was more, obviously he's Nadal and he was just more steady in a way. But however, Rafa won the first set surprisingly tight and he did have 3 match points in the second. However, I believe he was leading 6-4 and then his opponent Thompson came back and won the second set with the tiebreak score of 8-6, which is just insane to me because I didn't expect Rafa to tense up in a situation like that, but I feel like it makes sense the more I think about it because he's literally just coming back from an injury. So when he's playing a really tight match, it's normal, I guess, for him to be really stressed and kind of dips in his mental state. So I guess that's normal. And I do want to point out how, like, after the match, he posted on his Instagram and he said he felt something that's bad on his hip, which, like, is kind of alarming because he literally stopped tennis for a whole year just because of just because of his hips issues, and now it's happening again, but it's literally round one. Sorry. It's literally the first tournament. I can't talk, I'm sorry. But it's literally the first tournament. So, and he's supposed to play in French Open this year. I really want to see him play. So, I hope it's nothing big and he'll just go back to competing. Okay, so that's that. And I feel like for Australian Open, what we can expect from him is definitely not winning it, but making a good deep run, maybe to the second week. Because obviously this time he's not seeded, so he's not going to have the draw just perfectly laid out for him, so it's going to be tough maybe playing against the top players, but never underestimate the big three. Like, he can literally still beat anyone out there. He's still like a big threat. So yeah, and now let's talk about the final matchup. The final matchup at Brisbane International for men's will be Grigor Dimitrov versus Holger Rune. So my prediction, or what I want to happen, is Grigor Dimitrov in 3 because I feel like he's so deserving of a title. He's worked so hard for it, and even though Rune did work hard and just on like a performance level, right? I felt like Grigor was more solid and he was just more clutch this week compared to Holger, so I said Grigor in 3. Okay, saving the best for last. Oh my god, this episode's so long. I guess it's fine because it's my 20th episode, right? So we can make it long. The saving the best for last, we'll talk about women's. Okay, so for a women's side, we have so much stuff going on. Well, like mainly Naomi stuff, but there's still some other stuff going on as well. So there's an amazing matchup in round one, which is Peyton Stearns versus Camille Giorgi. They played 3 sets, and Peyton Stearns lost in the deciding set, but it was really close. And I feel like even though Peyton lost, we should still keep a close eye on her for Australian Open because obviously she, like, during US Open she went to the semifinals, so I feel like she's still perfectly capable of that. And even though like she doesn't have the US Open crowd backed up with her, however, I still feel like she has the ability to make it to like the second week, so she'll definitely make a deep run in my opinion. Okay, the next matchup is well, not a matchup, but something I just want to talk about is Kinnan. Sophia Kinnan lost, and I guess that's okay because she obviously was battling with an injury, but she did claim the Australian Open title in 2020, so I'm really happy to see her back finally. There's been a lot of comebacks this season. I'm really glad to see her back and see what she'll do at Australian Open. Okay, moving on. Daria Saville won. I'm really happy she won because she did tore her ACL like so many times. And when she was playing against Naomi, I believe in 2021, I think, or 2022. I don't remember, but she tore her ACL and it was just like really, really sad. So I'm really happy to see her finally coming back. So yeah, and she won in round one, which is a really good comeback as well. Even though she was like, she didn't sorry, I wouldn't say that she came back because she was playing last season, but it's just her first tournament in Australia, and because she's from Australia, it's just a really special tournament for her. Okay, let's move on. Okay, another matchup I'll just mention. I'll leave the link down below. It's Daniel Collins and Zhu Ling, and it's Mira Andreeva's first ever quarterfinal, which is amazing because Mira Andreeva. Okay, guys, I was born on April 28th. That's my birthday, right? Okay, she's literally a day younger than me. Like, I can't believe it. She's a day younger than me, and she's playing against, like, she have a possibility of playing against Naomi Osaka, which is my idol, and that's just crazy. Like, she literally has a chance to play against some of my favorite players, or like my favorite people in the entire world. That's just insane to me, and obviously I got a selfie with her during US Open, so she's became one of my favorite players as well. Okay, so she went to the quarterfinals, but okay, now let's just talk about the main deal, which is Naomi Osaka's comeback. So she played amazing. Her first round match was against Hamara Korbsach from Germany. Sorry if I butchered the name. But Naomi played amazing. Like, I was like so nervous seeing her back in court, even though she did look happier in the interviews and stuff. But like, I feel like even though you can say how like you'll act more relaxed on court, you'll show more happiness on court, you can really achieve that sometimes. Like, even if you say it's really hard to do it, but I felt like Naomi did it. Like, she was genuinely really happy, and even though sometimes she makes an unforced error, she wouldn't be really sad. Like, normally she'll probably like hit herself in the thigh and just like be really mad about it, but now she'll just laugh and just like laugh it off and shake it off, which shake it off Taylor Swift. But like, I just felt like it was a really good, I don't know, a mindset switch from where she was before, and I'm really here for it. So yay to her for that. Okay, and her second round matchup was against Caroline Pliskova, and she lost in the deciding set. But to be honest, I wasn't that disappointed. I'm just happy to see Naomi here competing again. But the other point I want to make is I felt like Naomi did really good, and it was a really tight match. And from what she said, she also had so much fun out there, and it was really fun watching that match. And Naomi, she kind of did really well in the first set. However, in the second set tiebreak, she kind of tensed up a bit. I feel like that makes sense because Caroline Pliskova is an amazing opponent, and she have this huge serve. So Naomi, I feel like, needs to get used to playing against opponents that are like on a higher level, because obviously she hasn't been back on tour. So it's really hard to see what everything is like so far, but I felt like this was a good chance for Naomi to see where the other top players are, and she kind of knows how to match up to their level now, which I'm super happy about for her. Oh my god, it's actually going to hit 30 minutes. Okay, that's too long. Okay. Anyways, moving on, the last matchup I will talk about in the final will be Arina Sablenka versus Elena Rybakina, and I believe Sablenka will win in two, just because she always do really well in the start of the year. And Australia, she basically won her first Grand Slam title here last year, so I feel like she's just gonna do really well. And oh, I do want to mention last thing. Naomi's biography by Ben Rothenberg is coming out on January 9th. So everyone go order the book. I'll leave a link down below. It's not written by me, but I love Ben Rothenberg. I feel like he's a really good journalist slash author. So please go check out the book. Not sponsored. I don't have sponsors. But yeah, please go check out the book. I'll leave a link down below in case you guys want to buy it or pre-order it. I already ordered it, and I'll like literally probably read it in like a day, and one of my episodes will just be a book review about how I think the book was written and what I like or dislike about it. And I guess that's today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. This episode was quite long, and please tell me if you guys want a shorter or longer episode, because No, just tell me because I really liked recording this episode. I did not feel like it was 30 minutes long. So please tell me if you guys would like a shorter or a longer episode. And that's it. Please follow all of my social medias. That is Instagram and Twitter using @tennistraverse. That is @tennistraverse. I'll try to be more active on Twitter, especially since Australian Open is starting. So yeah, and if you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. I also left all the social media links in my description as well as my link tree. So if you guys want to go check it out, please look at the episode description, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.